In this video, we are going to see how to use an existing OData service which is published by SAP already. The end goal of this video is how to use this existing OData service published by SAP by Postman or any other external tool. For example, we can write a .NET application and then try to consume this OData service. First thing we have to do is, let us go into the T code SEGW, which is the SAP Gateway Service Builder. In my SAP GUI here, I do have this SEGW as a favorite. So I'm double clicking here and go into the. Now here, it shows all the different services available here in the system. If we don't see any existing OData API that's published by SAP already, we need to add it first to the SAP Gateway Service. Here, if you see, there is a company code API published by SAP and it's added here. We have SAP product, that's another example that's added here. Let us go back and see how we can get the cost center data into the system here. And then we are going to use the API of the cost center to get the data from Postman. So we will go back. We will go into maintaining services, OData services. The T code for this is this, IWFND/maint service. Double click on this. Now we see all these different services that are available, but we are interested in adding a new service. So click on add service. Now here we have to provide the technical service name and external service name. So the technical service name, for example, if we go back, most of the technical services are starting with Z, whereas the external service name does not have that. So if we want to add a OData service from SAP, first thing we have to find out is where is the cost center OData API service. So let's go to the browser. Here, if you see, I have already searched for the cost center service. If you go to Business Accelerator Hub and then search for a particular product, for example, in this case, it says for HANA. I am using private edition. Now, if you do in the search box for cost center, you will see this API. This is cost center read API. Now, if you go to overview here, scroll down, and if you go into configuration details, you can see at the end, this is all common for every service here, OData service. This is the main name of the service, which we need to know. So here it's API cost center SRV _SRV. So copy this. Now if you go back into our SAP maintain services screen, we can click on add services here. Now here I'm going to say in the technical service name, the one which I copied from the SAP. Now once you pasted that name here, click on get services, which is right there above. Okay. We need to provide a system alias too, which is going to be a local here in this case. That's what I have. Now get services. Now once you click the get services, it shows that this is the service available. Now this service has to be added so that it gets added to the list of all the services available. So click on add selected service. So first select the service here. Click on add selected services. Now it will ask you some questions like where do you want to add this. So this is now if you look at all these things, technical service name, it added Z automatically here in the beginning, the letter Z. Then I want to keep it as a local object here. So I just say local object. If you want, you can enable OAuth. And I want to have this to be exposed as OData V2 in the SAP gateway. So you just select this and also set the current client as the default client. Then you say OK. Click on the green arrow or tick mark. It will take a while. Now it is added. So say again, continue. Now when we go back, and in this list of services, our cost center service is added. See, this is where the cost center service. Earlier it was not there. Okay, the OAuth is also checked. It's not mandatory to have the OAuth unless you want to use OAuth to access this service. OAuth is a different topic altogether, but in this case we are just using basic authentication. That means user ID and password. Okay, I can even uncheck it. Now, once we do this, we can go and try to view it in the SAP Gateway client. Now, if you see here the status, everything, it is showing as green. Underneath, if you see the ICF nodes, it is showing green, the status. We can click on the SAP Gateway client. Now, the SAP Gateway client will open. So, in the Gateway client, it is already showing what is the URL for the cost center service. Now, if you want to really execute this, we don't see any data because this service has to be added to a particular role. So in order to do that, first we have to do is to add this service to the role of the currently logged on user or any other user that you have created. For example, a system user or RFC user. So let us do that. Here we will go back again. Now let's go back again. And now we have to go to this role maintenance. The T code for role maintenance is PFCG. So if I double click here, we can either create a new role here or we can use an existing role. In this video, I had already created a new role, and maybe I will have another video where it will show how to create a new role. So here I am going to choose the existing role. It's a single role. I have a role called Z Postman. This is the role that I have created earlier. Now let's go and edit this role. So we click on this change button. So we are adding the new service to this role. So there are multiple steps here that are to be followed. So now click on menu here, which is here one of the tabs. I had added different services already here, but in this video, I'm going to add the cost center service. So for this, you click on this transaction, which is here. Then you see authorization default. So select authorization default. Now here, we have to select for this OData services, there are three things. Gateway Business Suite Enablement Service, the first one. Then this third one, service groups metadata. We need to add both of these because this is a version V2 OData. This is not a V4. That's why we need to add this one and the third one. So first let us add. So click on this. Then under TADIR service, we have to add this service. So here, click on search button here again. And now there are so many services here. So if you want, we can, we have to go back here and do a filter. Click on the find and let's find the service. This is the service we want. So this is the service. So just select this service, double click, and that service gets added. So click here underneath copy. So copy. Now it is added here. But we have to do one more thing. In order to be able to view the metadata, we have to add one more authorization. So go back again and click on authorization default. And in the authorization default, now select the third one, which is SAP Gateway Service Groups Metadata. Come back here to add the TADR service and then click again. We are going to find again. Let's see. So now it's going to show you the technical service name, which is the Z API Cost Center. Select this one, double click, it will appear here. Now we will click again and copy down below here, copy. Now if you see, there are two things you can see here, both related to cost center service. One is the service endpoint, the other one is about loading the metadata. Now let's go back to, if you look on these tabs, there is a tab called authorizations. So let's click on authorizations. Once we are on authorizations tab, we are going to click on change authorization data. Okay. Now I will prompt you to save the file, a role first, then you say yes. Now, when we see this, it is showing different authorizations that we have added. We have just added the authorizations, but we have not really activated the authorizations. What it means by activation is we have to generate the runtime objects so that all those objects can get stored in the authorization information. Now in this screen, we can see clearly that it's showing this as new. This is the latest one. Now, as I told you, this is the authorization object that I had already created and I had added several authorizations. For the cost center, now I just added, so that's why it is showing it as new. Now if we expand this, you see these two things are green already, whereas the first one is not green. So what it means is when it says green, so the corresponding object to the end, if you see, for example, CO material ledger, and then ECPCA authorization object, these things are already granted because of the other authorizations. Now, this is the new authorization that we have to grant. So what we have to do is expand this further and then just double click on that and you just say, do you want to add this full authorization? Say yes, execute. And now if you see, everything is green. The old ones, they just show as old, okay? Now once we do this, so we do a save, then we also click on this button called generate. So we need to generate the runtime artifacts or objects. So click on that. Now the new runtime generation has happened for the new authorization that we added. Click on save here. Now we'll go back. So here this role Z Postman is updated with the new authorization data for the cost center. Now we will go back. If we go to the user, the logged in user, or in this case, I'm using a user called Postman. I will make another video how to create a Postman user or any user to have RFC access, because a user who has to execute OData API from an external application is not going to log in into the SAP GUI. So that user is not going to be a dialog user. So what we have to do here is go to SU01. Now I'm going to select the user which I've created. I have a user called Postman. So I will search for that Postman. So this is the user. Now I have selected the user. Click on change. Now this user already was created earlier, so all the passwords, logon data, everything was also already there. Now if you go into roles, if you see here, the role that is given to this user is Z Postman. Now, whenever you add any new authorizations to Z Postman, this user will get automatically access to those services because of this authorization. So we don't really need to do anything for this user right now, because that user is already assigned to this role Z Postman. And so whenever we update Z Postman, this user will automatically get the access to all those things that are added to the Z Postman role. But if you are creating a new user, then we have to come here and click on roles. Then we have to go and add that role that we had created earlier. In this case, I am just going to go back because this user already has that access. Now let us go into maintain services. And let us pick the cost center service. Here it is activated, as you see. Now let us go to gateway client. Earlier when we went to gateway client, it was not showing. But now we have added this to the role of the currently logged in user. So when I click on SAP gateway client, now you can see the API name here, cost center, this thing. And we can say execute get, depending on whatever that we want, the data. Now there is something called entity sets here. Entity sets means in every service, it can expose different entity sets. So if we go back to the documentation from the SAP Business Accelerator Hub, we see that here, if you go into API reference, so these are all the different APIs available, and these are the different, it is the same endpoint, but the entity set is different at the end. So in this case, for example, if I want to read all the cost centers, the very first one, get, this one, is what is going to provide me with all the cost center information. These are all the different fields available, and you can do different selections. Just like SQL statements, you can select, I want only this field, this field, this field. And you can also do order by, then you can also filter. You can do all this. All this documentation is available on SAP Business Accelerator Hub. So let us try to see if we can get the cost center information by using this endpoint. So we will go back to the HANA system. Now, I don't want to see the response as XML. Most of the times, the applications that are outside, external applications that are consuming the API, OData API data, will expect JSON. So we can add the HTTP request here, those things. For example, click on this button, add header information. And here we are going to say we are going to accept JSON, then add one more, which is the content type, and I'm going to say the content type is also going to be JSON. Now let us click on entity set here. Select one of the services. So if you click entity set here, it is going to show me these two things. Now these two are the ones that we saw earlier as the API to entity set. So if I go back here, this is the A cost center, and then you also see the cost center text. These two are the things. To the left side you see cost center text, and those two are the ones available. Now there is further filtering that you can do within each of them. That's more on looking at the documentation and then do what that's needed. Now let's go and get the first one. So I'm going back to this one. I'm going to select the cost center as my entity. Now if you see here, it added the A cost center at the end. You can add some more things here like filter and selection statement if you want. But right now we are not doing that. So we just say execute. And now we have all this information that now this one contains all the fields in the cost center thing there, that is there in that API documentation. Now if you want, I can select the entire thing, for example, and copy it. And if I go to the browser, I have this something called JSON Pathfinder. I use it a lot. It's very useful. So all you have to do is left side, you select everything and delete it, and I'm going to do a paste to whatever I just received. Now what you see to the left side is all JSON. Now to the right side you can see it is parsed. So the node is D and the results, then you expand the results, and we have how many cost centers we have received. Total 19, that means 100, because it is 0 indexed. So the first cost center, it has some metadata. So these are all information like controlling area, cost center, company code, all this information. Now this information is available from outside. So now if we go back to the so here now we have seen the data regarding cost center. Now let's see how we can access this from Postman. So all we have to do is, so this is the main thing that we need to copy. Then let's go back. So I am going into my Postman. And I am going to take any existing one, for example, plants. Let's say I'm going to say duplicate this. I'm going to name this as cost centers. Now here I'm going to replace this with my cost center thing. I'm done. Then I'm going to save this. And of course, you should have added the authorization and all that, basic authorization. My username is Postman and the password. And the headers, this is the same thing, data services version 2.0 because it's OData version 2.0. Now you do a send. It's a get. It will take some time, but now you see the same data I have received. Oh, I think it added a filter. So let's go back here. So I got response 200 and you can see all the data here. I think there's a lot of data. So now here you can select the same thing, all the response you got. Now you go back to the browser and this is exactly the same response that we saw in the SAP Gateway client. This is how we can get any data from OData services already published by SAP, S for HANA. Thank you for watching the video.